I think we'll begin since it's like 7 minutes past the appointed hour. I'm Bert Kobayashi, and this is the first Legislators Listen town hall meeting for this year. This is an opportunity for people to hear about what happened at the state legislature this year, because as you know, legislature is a bit like a black box and a lot of things happen which are hard to follow from the outside and even from the inside. Also an opportunity for you to give feedback, good and bad, to the leaders of the State House of Representatives about your subjects of, your subjects of whatever choice. At any rate, I'd like to go over a little bit about the who, what, and whys of this. So the what was what I just said, that this is a Legislators Listen town meeting, the first of the year. Secondly, I'd like to introduce some of the people here who probably can answer some, but not necessarily all of your questions, because of course we have 51 members of the State House, and this is a relatively small group. If you have this copy in front of you, I'm going to go down starting from the left-hand upper corner. We have House Speaker Joe Souki, who is from Maui. This is his second stint as House Speaker. He was House Speaker in the 1980s. We won't say which years. No, 1990s. 1990s. He entered the House in 1982. He's been around for a while. Here we have Vice Speaker John Mizuno from Kalihi. On the end here we have House Majority Leader Scott Souki from McCully downtown. We don't have Karen Awana from Nanakuli Ko'olina, but we have Sylvia Luke, House Finance Chair from sort of Nuuanu. You got a friend there. And then we have Representative Scott Nishimoto, Vice Chair of House Finance. He's my next door neighbor, Kapahulu, Mo'ilili, Macaulay. So with those introductions, oh, I'm sorry, Representative Belatti. She is the House Health Chair, and I have an interest in that area because I used to be Senate Health Chair for 8 years. Couple decades ago, a few decades ago. I'd like to introduce one other person. Our host is here, the principal of Waialae School, Wendy Lagaretta. Would you stand up? Waialae School is a very special school. It was the state's first SCBM school, School Community-Based Management School. And then it became the state's first charter school. It also has an overwhelming number of volunteers. Many, and so if you come to the school on any day, you'll see various volunteers. Some are in classrooms, some are in offices, but almost unbelievable that you could have existed without volunteers at one time. But anyway, so Principal Wendy Lagaretta. Now, what we have is we have a few handouts, and if you don't have them, one is this with some of the bills that passed, and down on the bottom of the page, some of the bills that died. At least are not moving for this session. Sometimes it's as revealing to know what didn't pass as opposed to what passed the legislature. So that list of bills that didn't move are listed on the bottom of the page. Of course, there are hundreds of others that didn't move, but these are the more significant ones. On this side, on the mailing panel, there's a half page on the state budget. And then we have 40 some odd copies of this document, which is a set of pie charts for the state operating budget, one with all means of financing for the next fiscal year, and the other one with just state general funds for the operating budget. You can see that the two are quite different from each other. The state general funds constitute approximately 1/3 only of the operating funds of the state of Hawaii. So those might give you a little bit of a clue about what happened in the state legislature. So the plan here is to try to live up to the title of this event of Legislators Listen. So I'll try to cut it short and just say that we don't know all of the answers because, of course, we don't have the whole House here, we don't have the Senate here, we don't have the governor here, etc. Also, many of concerns might be overlapping with city issues or federal issues. But we'll try to explain what we know, and perhaps you might get a better view of what happened at this state legislature. So with that, I'd like to have two people only make some short comments, and then we'll open up the floor for your comments or questions. So I'll have House Speaker Joe Souki, and then House Finance Chair Sylvia Luke say a few words before we open up the floor. So.
All right, Representative Kobayashi and members of the audience, thank you for taking the time to come and join us. And this is a process of democracy that provides for more exchange and for more understanding of the legislative process. And that's why we brought the House leadership here. Each one has a little expertise to offer you here. And if you have any questions as we move along. I think the overall experience of the legislature has been one of collaboration and one of transparency, basically. And I'm very proud to be working with this young people, this group of legislators that have a willingness to share ideas and to work together. And for being collaborative, I believe the merging of the minority with the Democrats have proven to be very productive. I'm very proud to say. The budget was passed, I believe, for the first time that I can remember, and I've been here for quite a while, as many of you know, was passed on a unanimous 100%. Everybody voted for the budget, and that has never been done in the past. Everybody spoke in favor of the budget, the majority party, the minority, and those who in the past did not come along with the majority, who is now all part of the great majority. And our role has been from the beginning to bring everybody together as one house, and I think for the most part we have achieved that. Another area that I'm very proud of, and can give a lot of kudos to the finance chair and the committee, is to provide an attack against the unfunded liability. For the first time, we provided legislation that provides a progression and methodology in dealing with the unfunded liability. No other state in the nation has the same thing. As the beginning, we provided over $200 million in both for the EUTF, which is the health funding, and the retirement system, to defray some of the expenses, and we hope that in time to come, with the legislation that was passed that provides for progressive payments as you move along, that it will then take care of the unfunded liability. We also was very happy to give permanency to the tourist accommodation fund, in as much as tourism is plays such a major role in the state of Hawaii. It accounts for the majority of the general fund money that we have. It's our number one industry, and we try to provide some permanency for it, and provided a permanent 9.25 tax, and will not change. And also, we are very concerned about the film industry. We provided an additional incentive for them to continue to come to Hawaii. In fact, my understanding, they have about 3 or 4 different movies that they're working on right now. And we provided an increase in 5% of the tax basis. In contrast to that, the Finance Committee took away a lot of exemptions that we've had in the past, as she will mention, to kind of balance it out. So those that we felt that was not needed was repealed. So all in all, and let me just say with the health, they had some major concerns with the health. Obamacare coming along, and that's why we have Belatti. She'll be having a major job working with all of the challenges in health with Obamacare, Medicaid, Medicare, the continual expense of health costs. All of these are factors that every one of us have problems with as we go along. So all in all, I'd like to say I'm very happy with the progress. It's not a cure-all. It's just a beginning, and we'll continue to make notches in the health, in the finances, and try to be your servants and be good guardians of the state funding and programs. Thank you very much.
Aloha and good evening. Thanks for coming out on this Wednesday evening, and thanks for just coming and listening to some of the things, and we look forward to listening to a lot of the concerns. Usually what happens from January to May, we work long hours at the state capitol, and we rarely have an opportunity to interface with the public and find out exactly what some of the concerns are, what some of the needs of the community are. So we really wanted to thank people for coming out. I wanted to especially thank Representative Bert Kobayashi here. The people who get elected, the newly electeds, we call them freshmen, but he's actually not a freshman. And he has huge depth of knowledge about variety of issues, and we used him as a resource in the Finance Committee many times. So, we wanted to just thank Representative Kobayashi. And I have to say, the Finance Committee is, the community here is well represented in Finance Committee, because not only do we have Representative Kobayashi, but we also have Vice Chair Scott Nishimoto, who used to represent this area and also represent Makali, Mo'ili'ili area. So, the needs of the community is very well represented through these two gentlemen. The committee work during session can be very grueling at times, and it's because of the dedication of some of the people who are sitting here. We were able to get the budget done early, as the speaker said, and the way we have done work this year is through collaborative means, and it wasn't, unlike some of the things in the past, the speaker's office has allowed a lot of latitude for the chairs, and because of that, we were able to get a lot of work done together. And the way we do things on the finance committee is also a collaborative effort. I don't look at members as senior members or junior members or freshman members. I don't look at them as Democrats or Republicans, because each person represents a community, and each person bring a specific need and specific issue and specific insights to the community and to the committee. And through those type of information and discussion, we can have good policies, and through that we can do our work well. One of the things I wanted to highlight about the budget, this was my first year as finance chair, and with the help of the members and leadership, we were very lucky in a situation, because we were faced for the first time in many years, in a very good revenue situation. But one of the things that we all decided early was that even if we were in a situation where the economy was looking up and we had better revenues, it wasn't a time for us to just restore whatever government services that we have been cut in the past, but it was really to reevaluate and look at what government was there for. What are the core functions of government? What programs we need to continue to fund, and what programs we need to take a look at and maybe take a step back to see if it's something that we should continue. And because of that, the governor submitted a $6.1 billion in the first year, about $6.4 billion second year in the biennium request. Out of that, even with that, we took a pretty cautious approach and reduced the governor's request by about $250 million. And I wanted to thank the leadership and the members and the public for supporting our efforts in that. I think by taking a cautious approach, we were able to store away a lot of the money that we have saved and invested in the future. So in addition to some of the things that the speaker talked about, we put away $50 million into the rainy day fund. We also put away $50 million into the Hawaii Hurricane Relief Fund. That was in addition to the $110 million we were automatically going to do anyway. So at the end of the 2 years, what's going to happen is the Hurricane Relief Fund, which started out about $23 million balanced, will have a balance of $170 million. So this is thanks to the efforts and the many of the voices that came from the community, and thanks to the members that you see sitting right here. In addition to that, we took a look at how we do the state budget. What we have found is every year we give positions to departments, and some positions are not filled, and over the years we have positions that have remained vacant for over 4 years. So we took a hardline approach, and we told the departments, okay, if you're not going to fill these positions, then we're going to take them away. And we actually, when we passed the House budget, we eliminated about 1,000 positions. But even in my opinion, that was a little bit too aggressive, because some of these positions have already been filled, and some of these positions have been crucial. And so in the end, when working with the Senate and support of the members of the House and the Senate, we reduced about 250 plus positions from state government, but we gave the flexibility to the departments to designate, to trade off. For instance, if they thought this position was important, then they can trade off with a different position. And what we want to do eventually is change the behaviors of the departments and tell us if they don't need the position, then tell us, instead of using that money for something else. We have found that over the years, some of the departments have used the vacancies for either overtime or vacation payouts or for some other things. And, our belief has always been, if the departments need this money, we are going to give it to them, but at least be transparent about it. So if you need those monies, then ask us and specifically tell us what those things are instead of, taking it out of vacancy. So already by us moving in that direction, we're changing the behaviors of departments, and that's going to help in the future. So I wanted to just end with that. I'm available for questions as with all these other members here.
Thank you, Silvio. So if you have any tough questions, ask Speaker Joe. If you have any softball questions, ask Finance Chair. I'm only joking. We're going to try to end on time at 8 o'clock, but we'll stay after, at least for a little while, to answer any other questions that we don't have. So let's open up for questions. Maybe we'll take this sector, and this sector, and then go around. So anybody, questions here? Here, you want to come use the mic? Okay. I think we do, but not a full scope. What the state did was the state looked at monies that the state government would lose as opposed to what everyone else would lose. And fortunately, I believe the first estimate was that we needed to only put back into the budget $25 million. The biggest loss in Hawaii will affect military and defense agencies, and those fundings will be rather large, and I don't think the state of Hawaii government intends to take on that role. Sylvia?
So the question was, what, if any, the state is planning to do with the federal sequestration issue? That's a very good question, and every state is battling with that problem. As Representative Kobayashi said, we've been tracking, so what we do is we track all the grants from the federal government that pays for department programs, and our initial estimate, as Representative Kobayashi said, was $25 million. And through our analysis, what we have found was that it was going to be probably around like between $7 to $10 million. So what we did was set aside $10 million in the state budget for sequestration, and that's only for state loss to state government programs. As Representative Kobayashi said, was because that doesn't affect the loss for grants to federal programs like at the shipyards, we don't really know what the total impact is going to be, and we think the overall state budget and the overall revenue loss will be impacted by federal sequestration because of loss of grants directed to federal government. But as far as the state department, federally funded state programs are concerned, we have set aside monies to take care of those.
Okay, let's go to the middle sections. We have any questions?
I'm sort of an old new Kama'aina. I was born and raised here, product of the public schools, left 35 years ago, worked on Wall Street for 15 years, and then ran Bank of America's technology group in Silicon Valley. I came home to help my mother, and I didn't need to watch any soap operas because I just watched what happened at the University of Hawaii, my alma mater. My question is, the University of Hawaii, and this is just an observation, it's not a criticism, it's not a serious institution. It's barely in the top 500. It receives $580 million in government grants a year, yet nothing has been commercialized. The president of the university makes about $500,000 a year. That's more than the president of UCLA. So my question is, the University of Hawaii is becoming a place of no choice. kids here tell me they go to University of Hawaii because they really don't have any choice. And if we're going to build and reestablish Hawaii, have an ecosystem of economic development, it starts at the University of Hawaii. I'm on the board of Stanford's Graduate School of Business. Our people get paid a base salary plus a bonus, so they have to meet specific targets. One of the discussions at Berkeley where I lecture is, gee, I'd like to be president of the University of Hawaii. $500,000, I get lifetime employment. That's how Hawaii's looked at. So my question is, I know the University of Hawaii, because of what happened this year, now is a festering boil that needs to be addressed. My question is, how do you solve the problem? Do you realize that the deans of every college make over $350,000 a year? That exceeds what you guys make by factor of multiples. And yet, very few of them are from Hawaii. Very few of them are from Hawaii. I don't know any dean that is from Hawaii. One. Right? Okay. Well, my friend's dean of the School of Business.
School probably, medicine.
Yeah.
There are
But
lots of
still,
other deans.
what is their rank? What are the college ranks? None of them are in the top 100. None of them are in the top 1 section.
Okay, Timothy, talk to the group.
Yeah. So I mean, the question is, yeah, I think you've gone through 2 presidents now, which have gained national recognition, at least in California. My question is, what are you going to do about fixing the University of Hawaii? I mean, it's obvious.
Well, I respect what you're saying, and especially with the background that you have, but I don't believe the university is broken. And the legislature, the next session will attempt to make the university more accountable. To the degree I believe we are working on it now. You must remember that some years ago we provided to the University of Hawaii the ability to make decisions and to handle their own budget. Whether that was a mistake or not, only time can tell. But it was an issue that came out from the Economic Development Commission that we had. And the trade-off was that we would not provide them any dollars, but they would need to provide the money from the tuition. They would retain all the tuition money, and for that they were granted autonomy. Now the role that the state legislature have is in selecting representatives to the board of regents and submitting the names to the governor. Then of course we have the budget. But in the area of hiring, in the area of deciding the salary, that's in the realm of the legislature, of the university. I believe that if we're going to change that, we probably will have to change the Constitution, and that's not an easy thing to do. My understanding is the University of Hawaii, regardless of the mistakes that is made, which some of them is relatively minor compared to the mistakes that are made nationally and etc., for a $200,000 a scam that someone had, and it costs about $2 million now in hiring attorneys and everyone else to resolve the issue. I believe the Board of Regents could have handled it better. But the Board of Regents is autonomous. They're appointed through representation through the legislature, the governor appoints, the Senate confirms. So everyone should share in the blame if there is blame to be made. But I believe that the pejorative to all of this is going to be more accountability in the legislature towards the university as times come along. And to the degree we don't know it yet, but we know there has to be more accountability for the dollars. The wages is quite high, but again, it is because of the autonomy that the Board of Regents have. The legislature has no role as to the salary that is paid by the university. And we're going to be working on it, my good friend. Thank you very much.
I think Timothy's point is that university's potential is very great relative to current accomplishments. The other thing, of course, is that the university is a very valuable and one-of-a-kind organization in the state. Our higher education chair, Isaac Choi, has broached the idea of taking away all tuition money from the University of Hawaii and putting that into a general fund. Right now, all tuition money gets put into a special fund and is essentially sort of like more or less controlled by the university. Taking that money away, the tuition money away from the university would be a huge step toward getting more accountability. The university, of course, has just started measuring certain indices and have said that they will try to improve certain of these measures, such as percentage of students who graduate within 4 years, percentage of students who graduate within 8 years, etc. Perhaps to try to balance out the research role versus the teaching role of the university. So there are a few things that hopefully will change, but I think we get your point. University can improve a hell of a lot. Okay, so a question from this sector. Okay, Linda, you want to come up and sure everybody hears you?
Okay, thank you for having this forum. I really appreciate you coming out to talk to us. You can hear me, right? I'm Linda Wong from Diamond Head, Kapahulu area. I'd like to know how we, the public and lawmakers, can end the governor's sweetheart deal of having his HCDA committee, in which HCDA has their own public hearings, makes their own decisions for themselves, and is exempt from all height, city, building codes, and can override the city and state. I think it's a sore thumb in what's happening right now, and it's a big mess, and everybody's worried, and I appreciate Representative Souki for stepping forward on this, but I'd really like to see how we're going to deal with it. Thank you.
Anybody want to take it? Okay, Scott Souki. He's kind of sort of represents near that area.
I'm not sure how to answer the question. You know, what happened was the HCD issue got triggered a few weeks ago when residents from the Imperial Plaza called us up and started to protest because there was a proposal on the table to build a high-rise right next to their high-rise, and it's basically about 80 feet away. It would have blocked one side of their high-rise, and it was kind of interesting because that triggered, I think, a lot of public sentiment about what is happening in Kaka'ako. HCDA was created by the legislature in 1976, and it was given very broad authority. It was given the ability to override city land use ordinances, and the intent was to have one agency coordinate the planning and development within that district. And I think because of, you know, probably because of market conditions now, the investment that's coming into the state, there's just a lot of interest in land development in that area. My, and I've said this in the media, so I'll just say it tonight, but my concern is that I do not want Kakako to look like Hong Kong. And that is, when you look at, and that is an issue that does not just impact residents of Kakaako, but it impacts the entire urban core. The decisions that are being made there will impact everyone from Chinatown all the way down to this area. And that's why what we've done is we've tried to, rather than focus in on the issues that are, pertain only to Imperial Plaza, we've tried to make it a broader question about what should that area look like, what kind of planning should occur there, to what extent should the public be informed of what is happening there. My concern is that, and I've said this in the media as well, so I'll say it again tonight, my concern is that 8 CDA could become a mini PLDC. It's basically, it's a small group of people who are making decisions that will affect thousands of people. It will affect businesses. It will affect land development in that area. And so what we're doing is we will, and HCD is an agency that does have a lot of autonomy. But we're going to step up legislative oversight over HCDA. We've already submitted testimony. We've met with the authority. We've met with the executive director. We are going to provide some oversight over what they're doing. We've already made some suggestions for, how we feel they can make some improvements. First of all, they should explain how they'll be granting exemptions to developers that come in that seek exemptions for height and density. I do not support the 700-foot towers that are being proposed in that area. So there's going to be a lot of work, and I think it's going to be really important, which is what we told Kakako residents, and it applies to residents in this area, is that the public is going to have to be involved. It's going to have to be informed of what's going on, and the public's going to have to speak up, because this is going to impact all of us in the urban core. Thanks.
Let me give you some of my thoughts. Legislators are not geniuses, present company accepted. Legislators are not experts A to Z, but we get asked to vote on subjects A to Z. Our knowledge is about an inch deep, sometimes half an inch. I'm not sure that I would like legislators micromanaging HCDA, UH, transportation planning, human services, labor, et cetera, et cetera. There is a role for decentralization. There is a role for specialization. And please, don't put all of the focus on the legislature. You'll regret it, I'm sure. I mean, I've worked with many of these people for many of years, and they're good people. But nobody can have the expertise to really make decisions on so many topics, so many subject matter areas, and still do a good job. So I would say we'll try to provide guidance, try to do oversight, but I think don't expect too much detailed fiddling around with everything. Okay, so let's get other questions. We'll go back, take this sector, this sector, this sector, okay? No, so you can, no, so others can hear. Come. guys like me are hard of hearing.
Okay. You are my representative, and I came here tonight to speak to all of you, but especially to you. I, like Linda, am very, very upset about what's going on in Kaka'ako, and I live at Diamond Head. I came here in 1966, 65 in college. I worked as a busboy for a summer, and I used to lay on the beach at Waikiki and be able to see the mountains. And that's where I'm coming from. I have a picture here of what this plan is. I don't need that one. But they're talking about building in Kaka'ako 21 high buildings. They're talking about violating an existing 400-foot height limit and building buildings that are 700 feet tall. It was in the paper this week that there was a discussion by developers this week in the paper, real estate people and developers, about what a propitious time this is to make money and how they're going to be able to sell. They've already sold half of the building to Japan, and how they're going to be able to bring in people from the mainland to buy second homes in Hawaii. My understanding is that the idea behind the HCDA was to be able to build affordable housing for people who need affordable housing, and to build workforce housing near the downtown for people who need workforce housing. And I am here to appeal to you, sir, my representative, not to take the position, oh, I'm not going to get involved in that. I want you to get involved. And I voted for you, and I will continue to vote for you if you do things that will protect me and protect my Hawaii.
Thank you. Yesterday I heard from Leonard Tam, Kaimiki Neighborhood Board member, who has same sentiments about height restrictions in Kaka'ako, overbuilding in Kaka'ako, etc. Okay, let's go to middle, and then Wendy. Our host, Wendy Lagaretta, Principal, Waialae School.
Well, you can probably guess this has to do with charter schools, and specifically about funding for facilities. As you know, Waialae Elementary is a conversion charter school, and we do serve our district children. We'll have about 495 children enrolled K-5 next year. So we're one of the larger small schools in our neighborhood of some very fine elementary schools here. I wanted to introduce you to Buffy Cushman-Pates, thank you, who is the newest director of the newest charter school. And it's going to be here in Kaimiki as well. And she is a startup school. She got her notified, I think it was in December, that she was going to start a school. And she has about 6 to 8 months to get her enrollment, to try to hire teachers, to try to find a place to house her school. And, you know, she's been lucky. She's had people help her out, and they now have a facility. But it comes out of their per pupil budget. Whereas a conversion school such as our Waialae, and I'm not trying to take any money away from Waialae, believe me, okay, I don't mean that, but there has to be some mechanism that allows for facilities for startup schools. And it can't be taken from the conversion schools, because we serve a large district as well. We're one of the largest of the conversion schools serving the population. So I'm wondering if you have given any thought. I know that there was a lot of lobbying by charter schools to try to increase our per pupil funding. I know also there was a lot of legislation passed that would really help to provide more transparency and accountability for our public funds. And so that's my question to you, is there some thought, because I think it's one about equity. Some of my children are going to Buffy's school. They don't all go to Kaimiki Middle, which is a wonderful school, and I know Frank Fernandez, he's an excellent principal. I know down at Neo Valley, Justin Mew is the principal there at Neo Valley. It's a great school. But little schools like Buffy, all charter schools, are going to serve a population. They're just like my kids. They're just like the kids who go to Kaimaki Middle, and they deserve a facility. And so I'm hoping that you'll be able to shed some light. I also wanted to be able to say thank you very much. I know we got some CIP funds here at Waialae for our kindergarten playground, so thank you very much to all of you taxpayers who give money to public schools. I really want you to know we are trying very hard as charter schools to be responsibly spending money. And one of the gifts that charter schools gives is that we can put our money where our children are. And I want to thank you for that. And I really want to thank you all for what you've done so far, but there's more work to be done. And I'm hoping that you might be able to field this question. Who am I giving the microphone to? Thank you.
Thank you. So facility funding for charter schools has always been an issue. One of the things that we did this year was we passed a law that would authorize the newly created commission to be able to request facilities funding for charter schools. So that's the first step. That's going to be the first step. The commission will have the power to request facilities funding as part of their annual budget request, and then it'll go into the budget process. But facilities funding is for all of the 33 schools is a lot of money. So it's going to be competing with clearly all of the priorities that we have. But it is a first step, and I think there's a commitment on the part of the legislators to assist with that.
Right now, we are stuck with a pattern of funding that started when the first charter schools were being contemplated. And that the area we're stuck in is that a decision was made not to provide facility funding for the charter schools. And so charter schools, as you know, get several thousands of dollars less per pupil than regular schools. I think it's an inequity. I know I've spoken to a number of people about that. Charter school people are very unusual. They're sort of independent and hard to corral and control. And when I started talking to one of them about this problem, her eyes glazed over, and I don't blame her. Mr. Horner, would you like to say something about this? Okay. This is Don Horner, former, are you still head of our Board of Education? And also, of course, former head of one of our major banks. So maybe, Wendy, you can hit that guy over the head. Okay. Okay, question? And half the guys are older than.
First of all, this is not my district, but I thank you, lawmakers, for having this forum tonight. Because I wanted to take advantage of this when I saw this flyer. Thank you. And also, I want to thank you very much for our organization, for the grant and aid that you provided to our organization. We'll be able to continue to save lives. You know, my name's Ed Flores. I'm an executive director of a program that does what everybody doesn't like to hear, TROs, okay? And what I'm here for is, I'm here for two things here, actually. Number one is we provide services to the judiciary and have provided to them during the furloughs. We were asked by the judiciary to do the furlough Fridays. And so anybody who needed a restraining order, a protective order, came to us on those furlough Fridays. We were not compensated for that. And we find it a privilege and an honor to serve the judiciary. And to this day, the judiciary does not do these restraining orders or protective orders 2 times a week in Honolulu. So the residents of East Honolulu, windward, would have to go to Kapahulu. But we continue to do these TROs in Honolulu. We survive on a grant and aid and have been doing so for several years right now. And believe me, it's a very, very hard. So I'm asking the legislature if they could find a way to look for some kind of dedicated stream of funding, not only for my program, but for other nonprofits who are always having to rely on this grant and aid program. Number two has nothing to related to TROs or my nonprofit agency. It's related to elder care, an issue that is very near and dear to my heart. My mom passed away 93 years old in February. If not for my father being a retired military person, she would not have had the benefits, the big money benefits that I'm sure a lot of you and your children are going to face. My mom had what they call TRICARE, and Medicare, Part A and B, and TRICARE. So what happens if she didn't have TRICARE? We wouldn't have been able to take care of my mom. She was still part owner of the house. And that's another issue that's near and dear to my heart, and I'm asking the legislature, take a look at that. Our population in Hawaii is getting older, we're getting older, I'm getting older. So thank you very much this evening.
Okay. Well, I got good news and bad news for you on the grant and aid situation. We have here on the first row two of the leaders of Focus, which is a statewide umbrella organization for nonprofits. And so the question of how to add guidelines to the grant and aid process to nonprofits may likely come up again. Second point is that we have many nonprofit organizations currently who get continual funding year after year after year, not through the grant and aid process, but through the contract process. So certain human service organizations, nonprofits, get this money. So the idea that has been rolling around people's heads is that money to nonprofits should be clearly distinguished between short-term, innovative, emergency kinds of funding, which we would call grant and aid, and then continual long-term funding, which we could call contracts. So that might answer your question. On the other question of senior care, how many people here are 65 and older? Joel? Okay. It's one of the issues that I know I was concerned with, and Sylvia Luke helped out with. We have some funding for many of the senior programs. $8.4 million out of a request of $9 million for Kupuna Care, which is a community home-based service to prevent institutionalization in nursing homes. We've got about 4 million plus for the aging and disability centers throughout the state and things like that. But also we have small bit of funding, $380,000 to develop a long-term care insurance program. Now, for those of you who have been around a few decades, you will know that there were two attempts to develop a statewide and fairly comprehensive long-term care insurance program under the Waialae administration and under the Lingle administration and Cayetano administration, so 3 times. And they came fairly close. In one case it was vetoed. In one case a developed proposal was discussed in many forums statewide, but it didn't pass. So there are things happening in that area, but we know that we have this so-called silver tsunami coming. We know that we have one of the lowest ratios of nursing home beds per senior citizens in the whole country. We know that most of our senior citizens in nursing home beds are far more critical than their comparables on the mainland. So, yeah, we've got a big problem. So, okay, let's open it up. Anybody? Okay. Okay, go. Michelle Matson, Diamond Head, Kapahulu Neighborhood Board. Yeah. That way I don't have to repeat.
Very much. I would like to commend Representative Souki on his strong advocacy of revisiting the HCDA. We need to bring this conversation back to something that affects our whole island, and it's called not only sustainability, but carrying capacity. Representative Souki wrote an op-ed that was quite inspiring, and I want to thank you, because at least now we know we have someone to talk to and support on this issue. Today I attended the HCDA meeting where the executive director presented the transit-oriented development overlay for Kaka'ako. He made all the glowing explanations of why we should have 700-foot high-rises, sky-rises, and all these people on top of each other instead of in this suburban area taking up more acreage. Yet the question was, if they're planning for 30,000 people in Kaka'ako and have been for several years, how many more people are they planning to fill these sky rises with? And how much of our broken sewage infrastructure is going to be overloaded, and how much of our water infrastructure is going to be bursting, and how much of our water supply is going to be diminished beyond what it is diminished now, which is at a threatening level. Because instead of recharge of our aquifer by sugarcane fields, we now have housing developments. So we have a water issue, and that is something that has to be addressed, number one, or we will not have any other issues left. I asked the HCDA about their EIS, Environmental Impact Statement. I asked them if they were going to consider a comprehensive carrying capacity study, because their development for X number of million people in one restricted area will affect the entire island. They didn't have an answer to that, and I don't know if they will. Representative Kobayashi, you mentioned legislative micromanaging of the HCDA and other entities. For too long now, we have not had oversight of HCDA. HCDA has been an autonomous attached agency to DBED. They have called their own rules. They have their own zoning regulations. They have their own variances with which they neglect all their zoning regulations. We have a big problem with HCDA. And I guess that's all I need to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. I think the point has been well made that HCDA, Hawaii Community Development Corp, Hawaii Community Development Authority, HCDA, or better known as the Kaka'ako Special District.
Thank you very much. In respect to the legislature, a few years ago, A&B attempted to build a structure at HCDA. The legislature, through legislation, killed that project. So it's still, the game is not over yet. I think Representative Souki had made the first trust as to the feasibility, and this is a plan at this point, but you can be assured that if need be, legislation can be developed. So it's not like it's a dead end for HCDA at this point. Thank you.
I'm a legislator of the neighboring district to Kaka'ako, so I represent the Makiki-Tantalus area, and the school that my daughter goes to is Queen Kahamanu Elementary School, which is where I would say half of her classmates all come from Kaka'ako. So this question, and I think the issue that has been raised by many of you in the public, is going to need your required and continued questioning, because the questions that have been raised for me is, where are the schools for the projected 30,000 people that are going to be added to, and that's what they're projecting, 30,000 folks added to Kaka'ako. I think, as Speaker said and as Representative Souki said, it's not, the game isn't over, but we also have to recognize that Kaka'ako was intended to be developed. So I think what we need to do is move forward and have very productive conversations and ask the questions and hold the various departments accountable, because the Department of Education needs to respond and say, what are their plans? What are their standards for urban schools? What kinds of fees and impact fees can we exact from these developers that are proposing to put in all of these new housing, and hopefully workforce housing, which means that there's going to be kids in Kaka'ako, more than the kids that already come to my daughter's school. So I think the message here is that we have to move forward as a community and continue to have the conversations. So thank you.
Okay, let's start over here. Let's go back. You want to come forward? Oh, wait. This is a ringer. This is former State Representative Jerry DeHere of Manoa. Long time ago.
I'm not a ringer, I'm a citizen. First of all, I know how difficult your jobs are, and you guys don't get thanked enough for the sacrifice that you make. And individually, you're all outstanding. The problem is, in totality, I have some problems. In this list of accomplishments, Bert, Senate Bill 1171, Senate Draft 1, House Draft 2, is that the bill that makes it easier to develop the mass transit system? And you all voted for that? Okay, but you passed it. Okay, so that means that the mass transit is now that much further to being developed, which means that the transit-oriented development is now that much further to being developed. Because if the mass transit goes in, transit-oriented development therefore follows, because that's what the mayor said. Okay. Just want to make sure. Now, what about the $15 billion that you committed our tax dollars about the unfunded health insurance? Is that general fund? Where does that money come from? And considering all these other projects that we have talked about tonight, charter schools, TROs, Kaka'ako development, senior health care, how are we going to afford it when we got $15 billion of which you guys have committed us to? Where's the money coming from?
I know a little bit about that. We have a huge problem with unfunded liability. Part of it is on a long-term fix, but there are many, many hazards that might interrupt the fix. As Sylvia Luca said, we passed the bill this year that basically commits the state of Hawaii to start fully funding the unfunded liability in the health insurance fund gradually until 2018, when it will be fully funded per year if the legislature can hold its own feet to the fire and continue that funding stream for, what, 30 years? So, and earlier, Speaker Joe talked about the $217 million in general funds, in cash, that was given to the EUTF, the health insurance program, to begin front-loading the payment for the unfunded liability. That's the biggest upfront pre-funding that we have ever had. So even though it was a large amount, hopefully in a few years that will increase to a fully funded level of approximately $500 million. Cross your fingers that the economy stays stable. Cross your fingers that we don't get into another disaster, but could be maybe we're on a track to fully fund the 15 billion, actually it's like $16 billion in health insurance. We've got another $8 billion unfunded liability in the pension plan. And that has been on a track to be fully funded again over a 30-year stretch beginning in 2011. In 2011, the legislature passed a new pension plan with amendments in 2012. That new that new pension plan changes everything. Contributions are increased, benefits are decreased by at least 25%, vesting times have increased, retirement ages have increased. All this falls on new employees. But we didn't get into this mess overnight, and maybe we can hurry up some of this pre-funding, but in a long-term sense, we are at least on track to cut away systematically at unfunded liability, both in pension fund and in health insurance fund. I hope that helps answer some of the questions. Okay, any other questions? Okay, Chuck Friedman. Chuck's a familiar face.
I actually came here to say something about the University of Hawaii, and same concern, but a different viewpoint. And it's directed at you guys. I know maybe all of you, certainly most of you have come out of the university system in one way or another. I think all of you, or close to all of you, went to the university. John Mizuno actually was on the football team at the university, right? Yeah, so that's an achievement. Back in the days when they won. But I really want to say something positive and ask you guys to think out of the box. I think you've had a good first session together. You're a good bunch, and you got a lot of heart. The situation at the university really is sad, regardless of how you look at it. It's embarrassing. I agree with the speaker that things like a $200,000 concert blunder really isn't the end of the world, but it's a media story, and all of a sudden we're all caught in this whirlwind of bad news about our university. And it's sad. Now we're going to have to wait a period of time until there's a new president, and we're going to go through that whole process again. And it's true that autonomy and other issues sort of separate the legislature from the university in terms of governance. But what I would ask is for the bright people at this table, actually think about getting together with the regents and maybe some people in the administration or the Senate, and asking yourselves, if we couldn't this summer, as the process goes through to find a new president, we all wait around for the Messiah to come to Honolulu and save the university, which isn't going to happen. whether there isn't a way for good people who care about it, good leaders who care about it, to sit down in a public kind of way and take the top 3 or 4 issues that are facing the university: governance, student costs, research versus undergrad versus graduate, the big issues that we all know are there, and have a structured open sessions to the public and talk about them. Get somebody from the news media who's smart enough to cover it, and will do a decent job of covering it, to get the community rethinking about why it should take ownership of the university, what kind of agenda. Joe, I don't think we'd be talking about directing the university what to do, or the new president what to do, but it could be with the idea of presenting the incoming president with 5 pages of what we think is really important for the university to be doing, and take this time now for some positive, sort of remedial, but let's not cry in our beer kind of a thing. Let's just say it is a great university. It's made some serious mistakes because of the governance issues and whatever has gotten us into the soup we're in. It doesn't mean we have to stay there. And I think you folks are the guys to do it. You've got the blood for it and the soul for it, and you're all, most of you, university people to begin with. We've got to turn this thing around, and we cannot wait for regents who are unpaid, hardworking for the most part, individuals who take this on because they care. We cannot wait for them to take this bull by the horns in entirety. The other thing is there's lots of really good people up at the university who I think could help with this, professors and administrators who really do care. So my question, and it doesn't really need any answers, at this moment is for you to sort of go back to the drawing boards and think about whether there isn't something that could be done over the next few months to bring people together around what are really serious issues, and which, if we don't fix them and if we don't heal ourselves over the university, we're going to be just continuing to suffer. And that would be shameful for a state like ours. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody want to comment? Okay, we'll go back to another question.
I'm Bill Sager. I'm a member of the Kaneohe Neighborhood Board. I believe very deeply in community-based management, and I was dismayed to see the community plan that was developed over at least a 2-year period for Kaka'ako totally ignored by this monstrosity the HLDC developed. I think the problem with PLDC and all of its keikis, with the Agricultural Development Corporation, and every organization like that that has the authority to override local county zoning, environmental impact statements, EV surveys. I worked for the Division of Forestry for 20 years, and I saw plenty of government mistakes, and I think I made a few. Government is not omnipotent, and they need the participation of the community to get things right. I'm very concerned about the future of our watersheds. Obviously, I'm a conservationist. The Lingle administration removed over 100 positions in the quarantine division. The governor restored 10, and I think you restored maybe another 10. Things like quarantine need consistent funding, because if you stop controlling Myconia, for instance, 20 years of work is destroyed in 4 years when those keiki seedlings seed again. It has to be consistent work. The alien species are a serious problem in our watersheds, and if we don't manage our watersheds, we don't have water. And our native watersheds are the best sponge that we can have. The watershed partnerships are an important factor in protecting those watersheds, and they're seriously underfunded. The quarantine department is seriously underfunded. You can either forget doing quarantine and save your money, or you can do it right and install the kind of inspection facility that you have at the Kaneohe, at the Kahala airport on Maui, where the insects that come out of those crates are contained. It's a public health issue. It's an economic issue, because if we get sand fleas on our beach at Waikiki, nobody's gonna come lay in the sand. So, oh yes. Sorry. DoCare is the agency that is responsible for enforcing all the regulations of the Department of Land and Natural Resources. They're terribly underfunded, and they're afflicted with mission creep. They are called on to act as a state police force. The whole force was pulled off of their responsibilities to control unhappy people when the superforia was gone. And that's just one example. You've got to decide whether you need a state police force or whether you need DoCare to do their job for the Department of Land and Natural Resources. And that's a decision that you need to make, but DoCare cannot do its job the way it is now. Thank you. Great.
Yep. Hawaii went through 3 of the worst years of fiscal deficit ever. Legislature 2009, 2010, 2011 faced a $1 billion a year deficit each year. 2009, they took the low-hanging fruit. 2010, they took all the fruit. 2011, they started cutting branches left and right off trees, including a lot of the quarantine stuff, a lot of the DoCare, a lot of the DLNR people. And not only did it affect the invasive species issue, it affected some of our farmers who couldn't get their stuff shipped out because they had to get it inspected. Anyway, I got good news and bad news. This year, the legislature put in more money than ever for watershed protection. Total of $11 million was put in for the biennium. 3.5 of that was general fund. In addition to that, $3.5 million was put in for watershed protection, Big Island, Mauna Kea. In addition to that, $750,000 per year was put in for invasive species control. The bad news is that the governor had originally last year asked for $11 million a year for watershed protection. So we're more than halfway in meeting his goal of $11 million. The goal was to double the acreage of watershed being protected in Hawaii in 10 years. And so that's at least a partial answer. Okay, we got a couple minutes to 8 o'clock, and we want to end at 8 o'clock, and people will stay, some of these people will stay a little longer. So let's have a couple more questions, or maybe one question, and then we'll break up.
I just want to add to that, that are you aware, for those, I'm Carol Hopkins, for all of those who have not gone to the Board of Water Supply thing, It takes 25 years for water to drip down through the lava and into our aquifer. We don't have time to waste our watershed protection. And Ms. Belatti, I have to disagree with you, but Kaka'ako, the HCDA, was not intended for development. I joined the Outdoor Circle in the 70s, and at that time, there was an unspoken agreement between those gentlewomen and the state. I don't know if it was with HCDA or who, but there was an unspoken agreement that all the Kaka'ako lands, Makai of Nimitz Highway or Ala Moana Boulevard, would be developed, but all those, Mauka of the highway would be developed. Makai beachside would not be, would be low density, if anything at all. And so what happened to the gentlemen or gentlewomen nowadays? We don't have any in the legislature to keep that verbal agreement. There was this agreement. The Makai section was not supposed to be developed. And also, I was driving towards Fisher up from Cook Street, and all of a sudden, I hadn't been there in a while, and I'm confronted with these horrible murals, right, left, in front of me, and my first impact was, yikes, what is this, a ghetto? And I asked somebody, and I said, how could this be? And I was told that the HCDA is doing that, and they're paying artists to do that because they're just waiting for the leases to end so that they can tear it all down and build those high-rises. But go there, and every day it seems like they have another huge mural. So, Mr. Horner, can I please ask that you spread the word to all the schools, because the students and the younger generation nowadays, I mean, I'm 69, so everybody younger than me probably doesn't know about this, that it took 14 years for the Outdoor Circle to have the legislature pass the law to get rid of billboards in Hawaii. Since 1927, we have had a law against billboards, and what are we having now? And people don't realize, Mr. Horner, the kids need to realize that their school murals are allowed, except that if anything has words on it, even the artist's name, it's a billboard. So if any of you see these, report it to the city for billboard violation, because if in the early 1900s, before 1912, there was a big billboard of a cigar, I think it was, on Diamond Head. There was another one on the Pali. Do we really want that again? It was a long fight. It took 14 years. And you think we could get a law like that passed in the legislature now with developers with big money? So, you know, let's not give up our billboard law, and let all the kids know that we have a billboard law. Many have not been to the mainland and have not seen what it's like to have billboards here. Please, HCDA, stop HCDA from paying artists to do that. And also, the rail, I followed it from the beginning, and the city's own study. They paid for $1 million for that study. That study said in the very beginning, you need 3 million people to support a rail like the city was looking at. We don't even have 1 million here. And you think 1 million here are going to ride the rail? we are still subsidizing the bus. And then we're going to have to subsidize the rail for maintenance and labor and everything else afterwards? They don't tell you that, do they? It doesn't work. Please, listen, you guys, listen.
Thank you. I have at least a little bit of news about Kaka'ako Makai. 7 acres of Kaka'ako Makai has been designated as the site for a possible President Barack Obama Presidential Center. So the 7 acres will include some of waterfront land and extend into much of that area in the middle of Kaka'ako, which is currently entirely empty. So that is the plan right now for at least part of Kaka'ako Makai, that it be Kaka'ako Makai, Oceanside, right. So that, okay. Yes. Okay, there are several people who also want to ask questions back there. Um, It's now a little bit past 8 o'clock, so I think we'll try to keep to our promise of ending on time. So I'd like to thank, again, Wendy Lagaretta, House Communications Office, Rayton Varez of Representative Mizuno's office, and Olelo for being here. Thank you very much, and come on up.
I oversee the health committee. So I'm, yeah, I'm.